Hey fam, I'm making my second video of the day, and this is also going to be a long one, and this is actually addressing a somewhat separate topic. It still is going to address issues that have impacted me very negatively and significantly financially. But what I want to do is invite you, if you haven't already, to check out Marianne Petrie's podcast, Slam the Gavel, which shines a spotlight on family court corruption, which is rampant. Now, I realize a lot of people that are in a family situation, a family dynamic, may not have ever had to go into a family court proceeding because of conflicts that have arisen during the course of that relationship. But I wanted to mention to you that I have had personally firsthand experience of devastating fraud in my family court case. And from what I am learning about that whole system, the majority of people that I talk to that have gone into any sort of family court proceedings are experiencing equally devastating fraud in those proceedings. So I just wanted to mention that as kind of a precursor to what I'm about to say, because in this video I'm going to name names of people that did me extreme psychological and financial harm. And I am also mentioning their names because they put me in physical danger because of the influence that they had over my life and the decisions that were rendered fraudulently in my case. So the names of these people are as follows. And I invite you to Google them. You'd actually be, you'd be surprised to find out the status of some of these individuals. And so I just wanted to throw that out there. So first we're going to start off with the guardian ad litems that were involved in my family court case, one of which was named Renee S. Hicks, and she is still listed on Google as having an active law practice. But if you Google the Virginia State Bar, she's not listed as inactive, retired, or ever having been a member of the Virginia State Bar, which is really interesting because she was extremely detrimental in my case. So that's one name I wanted to mention, and I believe her practice, Google active listing is listed at 1417 Brook Road, if I'm not mistaken, in Richmond, Virginia, but feel free to Google it. I've screenshot it, so I have a record of that. Anyway, so her appointment in the case was completely fraudulent, and it was signed off on by the chief judge at Oliver Hill Domestic Relations, Oliver Hill Juvenile Domestic Relations, which was Judge Mary Langer, and her appointment was fraudulent. It was based upon a Supreme Court statute and code that did not apply. So in my determination, it was a knowingly signed off on fraudulent appointment, which constitutes misappropriation of state and federal funding and constitutes financial fraud. So that's one aspect I wanted to talk about. The next person I want to mention is Erin Murphy McClure, Erin McClure, who is also a guardian ad litem that no one can seem to contact via her contact information registered with the Virginia State Bar. I have attempted to reach both of these guardian ad litems to produce records, financial records of what they were paid in terms of my family court case, and they have failed to respond, which is obviously extremely rude, but also indicates that they have something to hide, since they have been unwilling to respond to my request for documentation as to what they were paid for their involvement in what can only be described as extremely fraudulent proceedings. So I'm going to leave that there. There was also a forensic psychologist that perjured herself that was reported to the Virginia Department of Health Professions, who saw fit to do nothing to reprimand her, which I found very interesting because her conduct not only was a case of perjury and fraud, but also it caused significant psychological damage to all parties involved in that case. And she also was practicing outside the scope of her licensure. So I think that is important to note. Additionally, we're going to mention two attorneys that were involved in different aspects of the proceeding, one of which is Eppa Hunton VI, who was disbarred for a year effective June of 2024 for actions that he engaged in another legal matter. And I can say, based upon his inaction in my case and his ineffective counsel, that I have no doubt that that was warranted in the situation that he was involved in, where that decision was rendered. But I would like to mention that he only was involved in my case for an extremely short period of time because of the level of ineffective counsel and incompetence that he displayed. And I just feel like what has happened to him is karma. I also wanted to mention Henry McLaughlin III, who I tried to get to assist me in my legal case and was constantly dealing with an unwillingness to really advocate for me in a meaningful way. And also I struggled to get him to do things that would have strengthened my case, to get documents, to procure things that would have called into question the veracity of claims that were made against me, which were not true. He was just also an example of ineffective counsel. And both of these attorneys were referred through the Virginia Legal Referral Service, or Virginia Legal Aid. And these attorneys that they use are supposed to be vetted. When I mentioned Henry McLaughlin III, I wanted to mention that his licensure has been revoked and all his files are in receivership. So everything that took place in my family court case, I basically just want to mention that I find it extremely interesting that the parties involved are unreachable, are no longer listed as ever having been involved with the Virginia State Bar, have been disbarred for a period of time, or have had their licensure revoked. And yet, nothing has been done to revisit the fraudulent actions that were levied against me in family court and the ramifications that those have had, not only on me, but also on my family. I just wanted to mention this because I have given these people that engaged in ongoing fraud, because of the data discrepancy that I brought to their attention, I've given them years of opportunity to remedy the situation. And not only have they refused to do so, they've doubled down on the fraud. And at a certain point in time, this becomes an issue of fraud by omission, fraud by commission, misappropriation of federal funding, all of which are criminal and can be pursued criminally. I'd also like to mention that the clerks involved in these court matters lied to my face, tried to obstruct paperwork being put in the file. And when I demanded on numerous occasions that the documentation I provided be uploaded to the electronic file, they have obstructed that process as well. And these were, chief clerks of the court. So these were, the deputy clerks that are supposed to be responsible for maintaining the records. They can also be pursued for not filing paperwork, and they are subject to a $2,000 fine per incident of improper filing or refusing to file and obstructing the record of its proper content. Because of the ongoing fraud in my case, I filed paperwork revoking all signatures on file with the courts because they continue to engage in fraud. Even after I brought the fraud to their attention, they continue to try to threaten and harass and intimidate me into going along with the fraudulent things that they had already predetermined. They obstructed me in proceedings of putting information on the record that countered their preconceived narrative. And I wanted to mention all this because if anyone else has gone through family court fraud or family court corruption, please follow Marianne Petrie's channel. It is a wealth of information. It is a wealth of knowledge and can give you some resources to potentially assist you in navigating that extremely corrupt process. And I also just want to mention that Title 4D and Title 4E funding are the primary reason behind all of this family court corruption and family court fraud, when they can exacerbate the conflict and limit one parent's access to the extreme that generates the most Title 4D and Title 4E funding. They are rendering decisions that are fiscally lucrative for them, that are financially lucrative. They do not care about the best interests of the child. They do not care about the best interests of the parents involved, and they do not care about trying to resolve the conflict. They exacerbate the conflict because that is how they generate their revenue. That is their sole purpose. If they tell you that they're doing things in the best interest of the child, they are lying each and every time. I hope that you have found this video to be helpful and informative in some way. I wish you all the best. God bless. Fight the corruption in the legal system. That's all I can say. Stand your ground. I hope that you all have a wonderful Sunday. God bless.